Greetings and peace. I hope you and yours are doing well today, wherever you might be watching this from. Now, the title of this video will be The 9 Men of King Ashoka and their similarity to Freemasonry. Now, the 9 unknown men of King Ashoka were founded after the Kalinga Wars, after King Ashoka chose the path of pacifism and realized that peace was always the answer. And that's what led him to the path of Buddhism. He had edicts, knowledge, and he saw what humanity was capable of if knowledge fell into the wrong hands. And he started the unknown society of 9 men, where each of the 9 were given the task of guarding certain amounts of knowledge, and they were tasked to go in different directions until they had perfected that knowledge or had come close to perfection. Now, I saw a lot of similarities with Freemasonry, with what the 9 men do, but it's not like completely. How can you say? It's not like completely similar. They have both have their own qualities about them. So I just wanted to point out what they share with Freemasonry, so those who don't know the 9 men, they can get a better understanding of them and see that they're on the path to perfection as well, just like you are. And I didn't see any video pertaining to the 9 unknown men and their similarities to Freemasonry, so I wanted to make this video and put it out there and dedicate it to the brothers of the Grand Lodge of India and anyone else who might have a chance to learn from it. I thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoy the presentation. According to the history that's out there about the 9 unknown men, they are a 2 millennia old society founded by the Indian Emperor Ashoka in the year of 270 BCE. Now, the legend of the 9 unknown men goes back to the time of Emperor Ashoka, who was the grandson of Chandragupta, and Chandragupta was known as the unifier of India, like the subcontinent at the time that was combined lands of Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, and how powerful they were when they were all together prospering. Now, Chandragupta was the one who had unified those lands at that time, and Ashoka, going back to Ashoka, he was ambitious like Chandragupta, and he wanted to just make sure that he had unified everything under his control, but unfortunately he did it through the path of violence. And when the Kalinga Wars took place, there were between at least 100,000 or 300,000 casualties that took place. And that really hurt Ashoka, that, for me to have power and control, look at all the lives that I destroyed in the process. And he had renounced all forms of warfare and violence, and he converted to Buddhism. And after that, he founded the Society of the 9 to preserve and develop and to protect the knowledge that would be dangerous if it fell into the wrong hands, because not every type of information is for everybody, which relates to Freemasonry, is that you have the initiated and then you have the profane world, and they're working towards perfection in Freemasonry, just like how the 9 men with each book they have been given on different subjects is to keep discovering and keep learning and keep adding to the book until they reach the state of perfection. Now, it is said that the Emperor Ashoka, once he was aware of the war that he caused and the casualties, his wish was to forbid men ever to put their intelligence or wisdom or knowing to any malevolent uses. Now, during his reign and tenure as the emperor of the United Subcontinent, he wanted to focus on natural science, the past, present, and future, and just focus on things that all research ranging from all matters to psychology, from physiology, microbiology, anything that had anything to do with people using it for malevolent means. Ashoka wanted to guard this type of knowledge, and that was his goal. And not throughout the folklore that has existed, most of the people saw the 9 men as those that had malevolent intentions, but I guess the 9 men, you could say that they're actually watching and protecting over humanity, and their intention is not bad. They just don't want to interfere with our free will. And then it's a similarity with the concept with Freemasonry, that everyone has the desire and their own wish for their own free will to do what they need to do in their life and face their own choices and evolution and consequences. So they're not, hiding all that knowledge from humanity. They're protecting us from things that might be, lead us to some kind of downfall. And that goes to religious stories as well, where, Adam and Eve were kept away from the tree of knowledge because certain types of knowledge is not for everyone. And that can be related to the profane world and to what the 9 unknown men are doing. So there, it shows that, some people see them as bad, some people see them as good, but their job is to do what's right for humanity's evolution and to not interfere unless we're in a position where we desperately need help. And that's when they will do their own thing in their own way. So each of the 9 is supposedly responsible for guarding and improving a single book. The quest of self-improvement, you could say. Now these books each deal with a different branch of potentially dangerous knowledge. And traditionally the books are on different types of subject, which I will go over next. The first book focuses on propaganda and psychological warfare. And this comes at a point where influencing the masses and the behaviors of large numbers of people is to guide them in a certain direction. And this is the most dangerous of all sciences, and probably one of the most dangerous books. That it is capable of leading one party against the other, and to shape world events, and to give power to those who want to govern the world. And this is what Ashoka wanted, was to, this one of the books that, or one of the 9 men's, their books focused on doing this task, is to keep the public preoccupied in certain directions, and to keep them, focused on things that only benefit them and not cause them any kind of damage. Now there are those that have used this for malevolent intentions, such as those that have caused disunity amongst peoples of different races and religions for their own gain. And there are those that use this for benevolent means. So the concept of good and evil exists and has existed over millennia in all societies, groups, races, and religions. And this was one of the books and one of the men's Ashoka had founded to make sure that the public was always in a state where they were protected and kept away from things that were harmful. And I believe that if this was used in a good way, because a lot of people use psychological warfare in usually malevolent means, but you can use psychological warfare in good ways to bring humanity together. Like if you're showing good things on the news, and if you're showing good events where there's a lot of unseen humanity that goes taken in place, and not everything gets documented on the news or social media. So if we could show the people that you and I have a lot in common with each other, that no matter who you are, where you come from, everyone goes to work together, they go to school together, they're trying to live their lives together. Everyone has hopes and dreams and worries and families, and just like you do. And if we use this knowledge for good means, then I think we can have a good future ahead of us. The second book focuses on physiology, where you become one with yourself, and it is actually part of those who follow the initiatic path, whether it's the 9 unknown men or Freemasonry or Sufism or whatever it is that you follow. Now this focuses on the study of the mechanical, physical, and biochemical functions of living organisms, such as your own human body, which is the temple that you're building. Now the Book of the 9, the instructions for the physiology, it teaches you certain pressure points, the touch of death, or different nerve systems. And there's a theory, it's unproven, but I just wanted to add this to it, is that the martial arts of judo was a product that was leaked from this book throughout history at some point. And also Bodhidharma, which is an Indian monk from the 6th century, after I think a few centuries after the time of Ashoka, is that he was responsible for spreading the Shaolin Kung Fu martial arts to China and other places. So normally other places get the credit for martial arts, and they rightfully do. But some of the Indian monks, which I believe were connected to the nine men in some way, have also laid a foundation to this cornerstone, especially with the aspect of physiology and the warrior path that some initiates follow in their journeys with the different orders and societies that are out there. And if you look at the description of the physiology, it's same like what the Da Vinci Man is, where you become one with your body and you realize, okay, there's a certain measurements, or there's a certain way that your body is built and how you come to the path of self-mastery. And physiology is you just becoming one with your senses, whether it's through martial arts or kung fu or other initiatic spiritual teachings or practices that are out there. And that was one of the books that Ashoka had given the task to guard as well, was the book of Physiology. The third men and book focuses on the study of microbiology. And microbiology, I guess in relation to biotech, it tells you the stories from ancient India that the water of the Ganges or Ganges River, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, please excuse me, are purified with the special microbes that were designed by the nine men and released into the river, where you have all the pilgrims that come to the Ganges River to, I guess, meditate and purify themselves of the sins, similar to, I guess, a baptism. They can all be in there at the same time, those that have a disease or not disease, those that are healthy and unhealthy, and no one will be affected by the water in any way, because this is a form of, I guess, alchemy that the nine men are credited to have participated in. So it's just like a lot of studies where they show water. There was a Japanese scientist who had a study of water where you had one section of water where it would be told malevolent things and evil things, and the frequency of the water will change. And then you had the second set of water where you told the water, I thank you, I love you, thank you for nourishing me, thank you for quenching my thirst, and all those things. And the microbiology and the frequency of both of these waters had changed. So it's about, the third book is basically the intention. Anything you put in your body, anything you participate in, anything that becomes a part of your living organism, I guess you could relate it to self-improvement and self-mastery, is you have to give gratitude and be thankful for everything. Otherwise, that same energy will not be transmuted in the ways that you desire. So your intent, what the nine men are teaching us through microbiology, is that the intent is the most important thing, especially with the human being I guess, majority water, 70 or 75%. So if we're in gratitude all the time, that will transform the way our senses are perceived and how we see ourselves and how we see the world. And I found that very interesting, that there was a concept that has existed long before science discovered anything in the modern times in ancient India. The fourth man and book focuses on the art of alchemy, which is very similar to the Masonic path and those that follow their path to self-mastery. And the relation of the nine unknown men is similar, as you see the pattern of nine, which is total affinity and becoming one with God, as all of these paths teach us in our life. And the nine unknown men can be portrayed to the nine frequencies of the body, the nine men who got the rings in the Lord of the Rings, and the nine Templars who founded the treasure under Solomon's temple. So that relation of the number nine has always been there throughout history, and that goes to the path of alchemy, is that they have all been transmuted or evolved throughout time in some kind of way. Now, alchemy focuses mainly on the transmutation of metals, and in ancient India, known as Hindustan, there have been rumors that a lot of these temples, when there's like times of drought or natural disasters, they receive like this large amounts of gold from like an unknown source, and the mystery is never solved. It's all speculation, but it's deepened with the fact that a lot of the quality of this gold throughout the different times of history in India, and it just cannot be accounted for because India has like a few gold mines, and they're believing that I guess some kind of influence from the nine men has influenced some kind of situation in India where they're producing this large amounts of gold, and they don't know where it's coming from because it's being transmuted from this different amounts of natural disasters and different events that take place. Now, alchemy and Freemasonry is to transmute all of your imperfections into perfection. Now, that means you becoming one with the spirit, you becoming one with your man through all of the divisions and racial disparities this society has put us through. And, in your practices, to become one with God and the path of self-mastery, how can you transmute all of your imperfections and your lower nature into a higher nature where not just you're, not a craftsman, but you basically become a magi of your own free will. And becoming a magi of your own free will and all the transmutations you do throughout your body, where the person you are today will not be the same person you are this time next year, because your body's always going through a change in alchemy. And it just goes to show you what the nine men have been credited with, that even in India they believe that all this gold that came from nowhere was done through their transmutation of the land. And that transmutation applies to you as well, to your temple, because you are the temple. And it's your job to keep sculpting away at the rough ashlar and transmute through the art of alchemy all of your imperfections until you become that one perfect being, one with God, just like how the nine men have shown us in their books and in their studies. The fifth book focuses on communications, and what's theorized at the time from the nine men is the communications with non-human life forms. Now, this is not confirmed in any way, but I guess there throughout history it shows you that those who reach a certain amount of spiritual level in their journey, in whatever path that they follow, they reach a certain amount of vibration or kundalini or energy points where I guess they receive messages, or they receive what the spiritual community calls downloads, where a spurt of information just pops up in their mind. And their job is to transmute that information to humanity, such as how throughout history prophets of different faiths have existed, because they got into a state of such a trance and meditation and their path of self-mastery, their frequency got very high, that opened the gate to the other side, which allowed them to communicate with these so-called entities and then transmute those messages back to mankind. And I guess in Freemasonry, like, communications are a very good thing, but this is something that's like, totally different, and it's like something that's on its own, but it's relative to those who follow these different paths, is because it focuses on self-mastery, and it teaches you that if you can unlock that certain portion of your mind and your heart and in your spirit, and a certain level of intellect that you can get to, there is some kind of gateway, spiritual gateway, that you do open to be able to communicate with these different entities, who then give you the knowledge, and that depends on whether it's good or bad. So depending on your free will that's given to you, that's up to you to decide which side of the faction you want to make contact with. And there have been different experiences, those who have did DMT or LSD or other things, which they have been able to pierce through the veil. But it's very few in the path of self-mastery, as we see yogis and monks in mountains who have been able to reach this kind of status in their life, and how many throughout the West travel to the East to be able to study under them and try to learn their knowledge. So I found the concept of the fifth man and the fifth book very interesting for those who follow the path of self-mastery. I wanted to add to book 5 that in the communications, a lot of monks and priests use the sound of Om because they believe that's the frequency of the communication to connect to the higher realms that many on the path of self-mastery follow. Now, book 6 and the sixth man focused on, I guess, gravitation, or the gray matter that exists between man and gravity, or between man and the cosmos. Now, they in ancient India, if you read the Bhagavad Gita and the story of the Mahabharatras and the ancient space wars that have occurred between different factions, good and bad, for humanity's future, or amongst their own, own agendas, they have these different ancient UFOs, they call them, of India, called the Vimana, and the gravitation would teach you how to, I guess, levitate, to, I guess, reach those certain points where you read throughout history, such as the book of Ezekiel, and the chariots of the gods, and the burning wheels, and some of the crafts that are depicted in ancient clay tablets, that there is some truth to it. I mean, I guess it's not proven by your modern history, which has been revised by the powers that be to suit their own agenda, but there is a lot of hidden history and lost knowledge that we have not been given. And that shows that a lot of the stuff even described in ancient religious texts about those that came down from the heavens to mate with the daughters of man, or the chariots, or the description in Ezekiel and Sumerian tablets, is that there is a lot of stuff about gravitation and a lot of stuff about aircrafts and different projects that the public has not been shown. And maybe that's what still currently goes on at a lot of the air bases, which your average person is not allowed in. So maybe this knowledge still exists, but it's not passed down to those that it needs to be passed down to. So maybe the sixth man out of the 9 and the 6th book protects us, because some would use that for malevolent means. So I can understand why it's only kept for those who really need it, and how when you see certain yogis and certain monks, they're always in a state of levitation, like those who are able to get to that kind of spiritual power. There have been stories of them being able to do that. So I found the story of gravitation and manipulating matter very interesting. The 7th book in Man focuses on cosmology, the study of the stars and the heavens and earth, just how the place where man stands between his mortal self and his immortal destiny, which he has to fulfill after this lifetime and wherever he descends to next, as all forms continue in energy somehow, some way. Now, this is similar to Freemasonry, because one of the arts that Freemasons love is astronomy, and it's very revered. And the 7th book focuses on the capacity to travel at enormous speeds through space-time fabric and time travel, including intra and inter-universal trips. Now, this is something that I guess some of the theories in this book haven't been proven, but the concept of traveling through space has been done by Masonic astronauts in respect to what the 7th book of Cosmology teaches, and the Mason's own path of loving astronomy and studying the heavens and the earth, in his own understanding of where he stands as a man and what his role is in not just perfecting himself or the world, but going beyond that capacity and being an ascended master in all that he does. Now, some of these theories have been shown in ancient texts and stories, but as of right now, they're just theories. But I wanted to relate this to the fact of what one believes to be able to ascend to the heavens and earth one day. So I like this one. The 8th book in Man focuses on light. And light is something that not just the 9 men revere, but it's also revered by the Masons. Because light is the capacity to increase and decrease. Some can use it as a weapon by using light in, I guess, in their own interpretations on how they want to use it or put it in certain directions. So, I guess, how do you say, moving at the speed of light or traveling light. So all these concepts are similar, where you need to keep the light in your heart in all the ways that you possibly can. So in Sufism, in which what I follow, in Sufi practices, Nur is defined as light. So your heart should always be full of Nur in all that you do, whoever you deal with, and however you can. Light is, you can use your light to spread goodness in this world and to spread knowledge and to bring humanity together. And that's one thing that Freemasonry focuses on, is to travel light, to keep that light in your heart, and to use that light through your Masonic values to teach the world that we can all love one another, no matter who you are, where you come from, what you believe, and what your socioeconomic status is. We can't let the divisions of the world, I guess the darkness of the world, take away any of our light or dim our lights. So I found this similarity between the eighth man in the book and between the practices of Masonry and Sufism. The ninth man and the final book focuses on the study of sociology, which has rules, regulations, and patterns, which shows the evolution of societies and their declines, and I guess their ascensions, their reigns, and how to predict their downfalls. Now, sociology is a very, very important subject, not just, I guess, to the nine men, but also to all of the other spiritual paths that are out there, to show you that in order for us to leave a better world behind, we need to improve the people that are in it. The quest of self-improvement and self-mastery. And we need that to help each other in our quest, because most of the organizations that are here to benefit mankind, their job is to uplift the fallen state of mankind. And throughout sociology, you see patterns of different empires and peoples that existed and reigned for thousands of years, and then they went into decline, and then they fell apart. But somehow, some way, their descendants still exist today throughout the ages and throughout the world, where some of those bloodlines are still in touch with each other in different ways, or let's say it's the same people fighting against the same people if you really study the patterns of history, but now they're used different identities and different ideologies, but it's still the same warfare between the two factions that goes on. So sociology, I guess, teaches us to study where inequality is, and globalization and change and technology and development. So it teaches us that where's our role in all of this, and how can we, I guess, use this study for the power of good rather than those who use it for evil. And that's what the nine men and also the what other societies teach you is try to learn these things and patterns and studies about human behavior, and try to focus on your self-improvement and leave a better world behind. Because the only way the society is going to get better is if we all put our anxieties and worries and divisions aside and come together to realize that we have more in common with each other and work together for a better future, not just for our sake, but for the sake of humanity. And that's where I believe our evolution will come, because a lot of people have this fascination with the nine men, that they're one of the puppet controllers, the shadow rulers that just don't interfere in humanity's evolution. They just don't want to interfere with what we're doing and our free will. They just want to watch us and observe us and see how we're doing anything. And the only time that they will ever interfere is like when humanity's in like very, very dire need. But besides that, they have seen the rise and fall of civilizations throughout history, because it's been theorized that when Ashoka told the nine men to become travelers and to wander to the different corners of Earth in their self-mastery and their self-improvement until they each of them improved their book to the state of perfection, is that they would not interfere with humanity, only if it was necessary, and to document and see the rise and falls of all groups that have existed throughout history. So I guess the concept of sociology is very important. And if you ever get a chance in your life, take the time to study sociology on your own free time, and take a college course at a community college if you can too, because it's a very eye-opening study and field. As Masonry has its own ancient landmarks, so do the 9 men that have been credited with the Iron Pillar of Delhi, which itself it's like an obelisk type structure, and it's one of the ancient landmarks of the 9 men, and at the era of Chandragupta, who was the grandfather of King Ashoka. Now, J.F. Fleet translated the scriptures on the Iron Pillar of Delhi, which I will read out. And this is a 1888 translation, so the credit goes to J.F. Fleet. So the verse 1 on it says, "He on whose arm fame was inscribed by the sword, when in battle in the Vanga countries, which is Bengal, he netted and turned back with his breast the enemies who, uniting together, came against him. He by whom, having crossed in warfare the 7 mouths of the river Sindhu, the Valikas were conquered. He by the breezes of whose prowess the southern ocean is even still perfumed." The second verse on the monument is, "He, the remnant of the great zeal of whose energy, which utterly destroyed his enemies, like the remnant of the great glowing heat of a burned out fire in a great forest, even now leaves not the earth, though he, the king, as if wearied, has quit the earth and has gone to the other world, moving in bodily from to the land of paradise, won by the merit of his actions, but remaining on this earth by the memory of his fame." And the third verse, "By him, the king, attained sole supreme sovereignty of the world, acquired by his own arm and enjoyed for a very long time, and who, having the name of Chandra, carried a beauty of countenance like the beauty of the full moon, having in faith fixed his mind upon the god Vishnu. This lofty standard of the divine Vishnu was set up on the hill called Vishunapanda." Now, this scripture is basically telling the immortality of the soul, which is similar with Masonic teachings and other forms of spiritual paths that are out there, to tell us that Chandragupta, even though if he's gone from this earth, he still lives on in the hearts and minds of all the men that he impacted. And even now in 2020, I'm mentioning him and mentioning the structure that was built in his memory. So the human mind and our human body and our soul is always immortalized. I guess what we do for others, it always immortalizes us, even if our bodies are physically gone from here and our energy has transmuted into another state of being. And that's what the Iron Pillar dedicates, is that Chandra, in his quest of self-improvement and the immortality of his soul, and also his belief in a supreme being, which is the god Vishnu, left this monument behind, and the transcriptions that anyone that stood against him eventually had their own downfall, because it also shows you that those that follow the path of light, as he was doing in trying to unify India, they always fall. Anyone that stands against the light, or those who are the conduits of light. So evil never wins in the end. And those who stand against evil, they will always win, and their memory will always be cherished. And that's this ancient landmark that has been credited at the time, because the ironsmiths and the craftsmen of the time, it's a very powerful structure, and to this day, any of the modern construction people cannot replicate this, the Iron Pillar of Delhi, with how the irons were transmuted with certain alchemical, practices to make it happen. Now, there are many in India and throughout the world who believe that the 9 unknown men had influenced certain men in history to, influence how they were benefiting their society. And one of these men is Jagdish Chandra Bose. He was a pioneer in radio and microwave optics. And Vikram Sabhal, the man behind the Indian space and defense missile programs. Now, they were both believed to be, members of the 9, because they believe that the 9 men throughout the ages, like it's a bloodline type of thing, or it's passed on from generation to generation, but the members of the organization are not supposed to be more than 9 or less than 9. So this is not proven in any way, but just theorized because of the role that he played in the upliftment of his people. So there's, I guess, different theories that people have about it. And they would say that Indian scientists were occasionally rumored to be members of the Nine Unknown Men. And from time to time, if somebody from the West, let's say, should visit India and they do something that's like extraordinary, then he's considered to like basically covertly have their help, as has been theorized with excuse me, with Pope Sylvester II and also Alexandra Emily John, who knew Louis Pasteur, and these different people that were out there who were created vaccines for rabies and I guess the cholera vaccine. So it's even, there's a lot of people that even theorize that even Elon Musk has been visited by the Nine Unknown Men, as what he's doing to help humanity with Tesla and all this stuff that I guess they're giving him from the book of Gravitation, or the other books of Physiology and other books of ancient knowledge that have been leaked to those that they believe are worthy of it, as long as they can benefit mankind in any way. So, a lot of people see them, especially the Theosophists, or those who are able to understand that concept, as they believe them to be a real organization that is working for the, I guess, benevolence or the future of mankind. And other figures that are out there between this, like occultism of the Nine Men, or other science fiction writers that are out there, such as Talbot Mundy, who himself had written a book about it, because I believe he worked as a police officer in India, and maybe he experienced or saw things that maybe he portrayed in science fiction because it wouldn't have been believed in any other way. So I guess with Pope Sylvester or anyone else that had some kind of suspected encounter with them, it shows that nothing in this world probably works the way that we think it does. We believe that, okay, whatever our imam told us, or whatever our teacher or preachers told us, everything is black and white, and there's no gray matter or in between. But I believe that this world and humanity are truly unique and truly beautiful species, and there is a force out there looking for us. We are being protected and watched over. Whether you believe in this concept or not, I know in my heart that there is a force out there that protects our evolution, does not interfere with our free will, and lets us, I guess, rise from our fallen state of mankind through our own work as craftsmen and as men, and as those that choose to follow the path of light rather than follow evil. And that's why I'm honored that I had a chance to preserve the memory of not just King Ashoka, but the Nine Men, and how there's many different societies that exist today that exemplify their values, even if, let's say, the Nine Men have different attributes given to them. But I'm honored either way, and I'm thankful for their contributions and what they have done. I want to thank everyone that has watched this presentation. If you have any questions or comments, my email is salmonshake911@gmail.com. And all the images I used in this presentation were retrieved from Google search and used under the copyright laws of fair use, education purpose. And the information that I have portrayed in this video is through my own interpretation of all the things that I have read about the Nine Unknown Men, which is all available for the public and can be researched by their own self. And it's my best job to relate it to how I believe that it benefits people, and how it's related to Freemasonry and etc. And also, my work is always non-profit, never to make any money, but for the purpose of education. I thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this in the best way that I could possibly present it. And I wish you all a beautiful rest of the year ahead. Thank you.